Hello and welcome to this week's Oboe Windfree. Today is my last interview for the final short in our I Create Online series. These imaginative and exciting ICO collaborations were essentially born and created during the first lockdown back in March, and we've already received national TV and press coverage. The response has been absolutely fantastic and we really appreciate all your support. Now we have actually started working on our next series, which will be released in the new year, but the final video for now will be released tomorrow. This week, my two guests are two very important collaborators in tomorrow's I Create Online, which is called Tides of Time. We have the award-winning author Judi Curtin and animator and filmmaker Philip Shanahan. Hello Judi and Phil, how are you both doing?
Hi Matthew, hi Phil.
How's it going?
Great, thank you ever so much for taking the time out today. Now, I've seen the animation, I've seen the finished product, and it's absolutely brilliant. It really is incredible. But firstly, Judi, I wanted to ask you, how did you start adapting Tides of Time, which is essentially a whole book, for this quite short collaboration? And also, I wanted to find out if you had any thoughts as to how it might look and how the characters might sound before you handed over your story and actually your imagination, really, to the Irish Chamber Orchestra.
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. I suppose my brief, first of all, was to produce something that was reflective of the time we live in. And for me, time travel, I'm really interested in time travel. So, of course, time travel more than anything, it's where you end up somewhere you didn't really expect to be. So I actually went back to one of the books I had written already called Time After Time. And yeah, adapting it, I had to make it, make sense, a small excerpt from it and make it somewhat complete as a story as well. So there was a bit of work in that and a few back and forths and changing it, but yeah, it was fine. And in terms of how it was going to look and sound, I was really kind of winging it and trusting everybody who was involved in this, because I didn't really understand how the music and how the animation would fit my story. So I saw the scene breakdown and I listened to the music, but in my head I didn't really put it together. And when I did see the result, I was just blown away. I never would have anticipated it turning out the way it did.
Right, okay, that's great, that's fantastic to hear. Now Phil, I understand that you said creativity and not growing up are the same thing. So I'm guessing for you, animating a children's story must have been like a dream collaboration. Now, can you tell me a little bit about the process of actually creating an animation? Just, how do you do it? Kind of exactly what do you do?
I suppose technically you nearly always need to start with your sound and sound design, and at least have a good portion of your dialogue ready to go. So in this case, the dialogue and the script and all of that was all kind of complete before it came to me, which is great. Which means then it is a case of finding the right music and getting the dialogue to work in tandem with that. The thing about the piece, the music that was used for the piece as well, Sam Perkins' Waves, it's a gorgeous piece, and it's kind of broken up into different sections, tonally and different instrumentations and different styles and stuff, all in this one long piece. So I suppose with me, I would have to try and get the dialogue and I suppose start pre-visualization with tones of the music and instrumentation. When I feel that the tone kind of starts to match the story and match the dialogue during that process, I'm also kind of starting to develop what the characters look like and stuff like that. So I didn't know what the characters looked like, or I didn't know if there was any descriptions of the characters beforehand from Judi's books or anything like that. So I just tend to draw from life. So I mean, I always like to put a little bit of myself in there. So there's little pieces, there's little moments where they're obviously in the mall, and the mall is set in the 80s, spoiler. But I kind of drew from my own childhood. I used to go to town with my grandmother every Friday, and we used to go into Harry's chip shop inside the old Duns. So that made its way into the animation, that in the background. My grandmother actually made it into the, she's the old lady is kind of styled upon my grandmother as well. Then there's all little things like that where I think for me my imagination kind of runs wild when I start to attach myself to different facets of the story and things like that. Even if it's little background pieces or if it's little character quirks like that, that's where the development process or where the characters tend to come to life, or the backgrounds come to life.
It's fantastic. So you really do let your kind of inner child meet your creative genius kind of thing.
Yeah, that's it. I like the idea of never wanting to grow up.
Yeah. Now, Judi, I understand that you and Phil didn't meet when you were working on this project, and I think you've only just met across the internet now, haven't you? So when you saw the final edit with Sam's music, Aoife Nagochlik's narration, and the characters Phil created, I know you said you were really thrilled with it, but was it anything like this story had existed in your imagination?
Well, I didn't know I was accidentally rewriting Phil's childhood, which was interesting, and it's lovely to see your granny in her little cameo in the animation. No, I didn't expect it to be so witty, because I like to think that parts of my books are funny and engaging, but Phil found other bits, and just the little things like the girls popping their heads through the foliage in the 80s shopping centre, and the little butterfly, and the people wandering by that weren't in my story at all, and all those added bits. And I didn't expect to laugh so much, and yet he kept somehow the poignant pieces, and the shock of these two girls in a strange place, and then the music on top of that. To me it's like magic. I like to think I'm good with words, but the music and animation, that's so far away from anything I could do that I'm very, very impressed with it.
Now, this is a question for you both, really. In this world of kind of lockdown, and the way the world's changed, kind of the way we have to collaborate and everything, do you think this type of creativity and this type of working together will become a substitute for the traditional way of collaborating?
Well, for me, I suppose my work, there isn't a whole lot of collaboration except with other authors. That's kind of the way we work in all of my events. It's generally on other authors or possibly illustrators, but I've never worked with animators or musicians before. And the lockdown has affected us in so many ways, but for me this has been a really, really positive thing, and I'd like to go back in some ways to my old life and the normal things I used to do, but if this could be added on to what I used to do, I think that would be a good result for the world. Yeah,
I think the same as well. I tend to collaboration is kind of is a thing that's like heavily involved in all my work, because video editing, it tends to be kind of solitary in the sense that you are working in a dark room, usually in front of a computer for long hours, but in the same sense that you're communicating either with directors or writers or musicians or whoever you have constantly. And I think a good portion of what I did previous to the lockdown is very similar to this now as well. But I think it's good in a way to the collaboration sometimes, even from different mediums and stuff like that. It's good because it takes you out of your comfort zone, and it kind of gets you meeting more people from different disciplines and things like that. And I think if we were to collaborate a bit more with other people in different disciplines, it kind of makes it easier. It kind of makes the confinement or the kind of big bad world that's out there at the moment, it takes the edge off a little bit. And certainly things like this, doing the animation and stuff like that, really helps mentally, and helps being able to break down I don't know, the rough and tumble of the world as well, you know?
Yeah,
that makes
absolutely.
sense.
Yeah, definitely.
I love the way you mentioned comfort zone. I can't even remember where my comfort zone used to be, because every day I'm taking another step further out of where I used to be. And yeah, I should have said when I was talking about the collaboration too, the narration by Aoife, just another layer of all the wonderful things that were going on top of that. Just not what I expected, and I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I don't think anybody was quite expecting Aoife to be just as magical as she was. It's absolutely amazing. She's never done anything like that before. But I wondered, with this particular film, is there a specific age group that it would appeal to?
Well, I suppose when I write a book, I don't really have a set audience, but I would imagine in my head, the kind of age group of people who would actually understand, not all the words, but most of the words, and could understand the sequence of the story. And I suppose you're somewhat limited then in terms of a younger age group, but an animation then brings in all the extra bits that younger children can enjoy. So, even small little ones can enjoy the bright colours and the sudden music and the sound and the movement. So I don't know how you'd even begin to put a lower age limit on it. And certainly I think a 2-year-old could respond really well without fully understanding the story. And upper age group, well, I wouldn't put a limit on that, 99 plus maybe.
Yeah, I'd say the same as well. Yeah, there's enough bright colours for the younger audiences, and enough of movement and things going on there to kind of captivate them a little bit. And I think there's enough in there for adults as well. And especially like that, there's little beats from Limerick in there that if people locally would kind of know as well. So that's always nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Phil and Judi, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it. I know you're both incredibly busy. Tides of Time is the 4th I Create online collaboration featuring the work of Judi Curtin and Philip Shanahan, narrated by Aoife Nagoklich, and the music Waves is performed by the Irish Chamber Orchestra and composed by Sam Perkin with generous support from the Arts Council of Ireland. Thank you very much everybody, and I'll see you next week.